You are using the computer.
And then how should I tell you to
Mute on entries. You're not allowing them to unmute themselves. Play, enter, exit chime. I don't think we need that.
I'll hold up this. I'll put this over here if for some reason I want you to stop the video on us so that you and I can communicate without us being seen that we're communicating.
Yes.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Right here, yeah. Like,
yeah, just.
oh, it's sure going to be touchy here. I can do it down here. Stop video down here. Okay. Well, that's a good point. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
I hope it doesn't just sit on me the whole time. Cross your fingers, this goes well.
No, I wasn't flipping people off. I had all fingers up. When I do that, it almost looks like I was
Don't be
flipping the bird. Okay, my notes.
We mute ourselves until we know something.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hi, Vicki.
Hello, Scott.
How are you?
I'm good. You said come in early and I'm at home, so I went, okay, I'm just going to come in.
No, thank you. Because
How are you?
good. I realized later on that I think like Boulder has webinar built into their Zoom account where we don't have that. We don't have the money to spend on all that.
Yeah.
And so we've got to go in and unmute each of you all to ask your question.
Oh,
As
okay.
we did yesterday, instead of having like a separate invite list of the panelists, which Boulder had yesterday. So you are good to go. And when I call on your name, you'll be able to ask your question. So
Okay, sounds good. So did we have
do I
about,
look like I have a halo around my head?
no, but you're
Little-
hiding in
I'm
the
kind of-
mountains.
I'm a
Oh
little-
yeah, kind of, I see it. I wouldn't have thought that the halo approach was you, Scott, but you know, it could be.
Well, you know, being in quarantine for this long,
Oh,
I've just gotten better.
I know.
I've improved, and now there's even a halo. So
Hey, it's all good. So do we have about the same amount signed up for today?
we have 71 signed up, so I would imagine it would be very
Yeah.
similar to
Okay.
yesterday. Yeah.
Cool. So it's going to be the same thing. We won't be on video, it'll just be voice stuff, right?
Actually, yeah, we'll have video. Now you can turn your video off if you want to, but
Okay.
yeah, this one will be on video, and I believe the senator will be on video as well.
Okay.
And I will be too. So
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. I think I need to get one of your cool backgrounds. Did you do that on the
you know what? This is actually the background that we use on our website and that we've used on our social media. So it's just a regular little picture, and
Okay.
we just
Can you have Vicki mute herself and see if she can unmute herself once she, because that's what I'm wondering. We may have to,
okay.
I don't know.
Okay. So you want me to unmute myself?
So yeah,
Wait.
mute yourself, then unmute. See
Okay.
if it will let you.
All right. Since I'm the guinea pig, I'm going to.
Yep.
No? Doesn't look like she's just letting her. Okay.
So it says I can't unmute myself
Okay.
because the host is in charge of that.
Okay. So
So
what
what
we'll
that means is they will have to stay unmuted, or they'll have to figure out ways, get my attention with a chat or something.
okay.
if they choose to mute themselves, I will have to go back in and unmute them again.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, so what we'll probably do is just leave all the chamber execs unmuted. So just be careful to be quiet, I guess. And then once you're done, of course, you can mute. But
Okay.
if you accidentally mute yourself, just send us a chat.
Oh, okay.
Or send me a chat. I think I'm under Longmont Chamber, yeah. And then we'll know to unmute you.
Okay, cool.
And if we get messed up, we'll just skip that person and then we'll come back around, you know.
Okay.
So
Cool. We're all flexible.
yeah.
You know,
It seems like, you know, after you do Zoom for like, now it's been weeks, you would think, hey, I've got it pretty well figured out.
right.
But then you don't, you know.
Then you have a meeting and you go, ooh, this is different than the last time I had this one. So yeah, I just well, one of my workers told me that 9 News put something out that the Zoom things have been hacked and we need to change our passwords. And I went, well, what a surprise. You know, you just get something up and running and of course it's get hacked. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
I went in and changed mine anyway. It's like, okay, whatever. It's all good. Well, I will let you probably have things to do, so I'm gonna take a break for a minute and
Okay.
I will be back in.
We are good. Okay, thank you. Awesome
All
to
right.
see.
Oh, okay.
Cory, looks like we have Darlene coming in. So
Okay.
so can we just unmute her?
She is not muted.
Is this Darlene?
This is Darlene. Yes.
Hey,
Gosh,
how are
am I
you?
in the right place? I'm doing well, thrilled to death that we are connected here.
Yeah, great. I'm Scott. So I'm with the Longmont Chamber, and then Kathy Stevens on our team is joining me as well. So together we'll be managing this. So we don't have the expanded, awesome version of Zoom. So that's why we're going to mute everybody as they come in, but of course we didn't want to mute the senator. So
Sure.
we've done that. We've got you unmuted, so we should be able to hear him. If something happens and we can't hear him, we'll go start playing with it. So
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we've connected so you could test things out, and
yes,
sounds like we're doing okay.
yeah, I think so. How are you doing? I'm sure your office.
Don't mute
Oh.
because I'll have to unmute.
And Darlene, if you would just don't unmute yourself, because then we'll have to go back in and find you and unmute you again. So
Okay.
That's
So
all right.
leave it as it is, you're saying.
correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, we can do that. Yeah.
We're all learning. I was just telling Vicki Trumbo in the Lafayette Chamber that it seems like after several weeks of using Zoom that we'd all be experts. But I think it takes a little longer than a few weeks. At least that's been the case for me. So.
But you know what we're finding is every meeting is different. It's Hangout, it's Zoom, so every single one is a little bit different protocol to
Right.
connect with, and yeah. But you know, another week, I bet we all will be experts at each way.
I can tell you this, we'll know more than we know now.
Yes. And I
When
will
it comes to
tell
tech
you,
stuff, I don't know if I'll be an expert ever, but you know, I will say that I'll know more.
Yes. And my fear is that, you know, some of this is going to stick and that we will continue doing it and that I will not get much better at it. And I miss seeing folks. It's difficult to build a relationship on a video screen, but that's okay. It's working. Yeah.
I think, Darlene, there may be a support group for that.
Okay, good.
And you and I
Good.
probably will see each other at that because yes, I have that same fear.
Well,
So
we can open a chapter here in Yuma. You just let me know. I'll be an
Okay.
ambassador.
that'll be a little bit of a drive for me, but
Oh, well,
at that point, then we'll have to Zoom it, right?
absolutely. That's
Which will
right.
ruin the whole point of it, you know.
Oh, it's too funny. Yeah. Well,
And
the
I think-
senator should be along, probably, he'll be all of his 10 minutes. I'm afraid he had another
sure.
scheduled call, but
Yep,
we
no
will get
worries
there.
At all. And I
Okay.
believe we were told earlier we have about 45 minutes. So I was just gonna let everybody know that too. So we manage that.
Yes,
So,
yes, you are good.
Okay. All right, great. And then Kathy, I think we have Shelley.
Hi.
You, Shelley?
Do you want us on video or would you rather we're not?
That's up to you. I'll be on video. The senator will be on video. Whatever people prefer. If you
I'd rather
rather not 70 people looking into your home. that's
Right.
understandable.
Krista, am I off video now?
You are on video. Yeah.
Still on video?
If you go to the lower left,
Now
there
am
you
I on
go.
video?
Warn her.
Yeah.
Can you
And
please-
Shelley,
Yes.
are you still there? Please don't unmute yourself because then
Don't
we'll have
mute
to.
yourself.
What's that?
Don't mute yourself.
I'm sorry. Please don't mute
Don't
yourself.
mute
Yeah, that was a
myself.
double negative.
Okay.
Don't mute yourself because then we'll have to go and find you again. So,
Okay.
and then can you unmute Lori and I'll ask
Oh,
Lori.
I don't think I'm muted, Scott. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, Lori.
Hi,
Lori,
Hi,
will you be speaking for John today or do we
I
need to?
will. I
Okay.
will.
All
You
right.
can either call me John or call me Lori, whatever you're more comfortable with, Scott.
Okay. All right.
We like
I'm
you
sure
better.
I can think of a pretty good joke for this somewhere in here, but yes. But John won't be here, right? So he won't hear the joke.
No,
So I'm
but do
okay.
share it with him, especially if it works in my favor.
Of course, I was just going to say something. The better part of the Boulder Chamber or something.
Oh, you're
Something.
sweet. Thank you. Thank you. Well, he sends his regrets. We had a previously scheduled event during this time, and
Yeah.
we know, of course, the senator has lost flexibility, but we didn't want to cancel, and so
Oh yeah. No, definitely.
so you get the B team.
I'm totally happy with it.
Hi, TJ.
Oh, so you are.
Oh yeah, and if we can unmute TJ.
Working on it.
Hi, Shelley.
Hi, Vicky. That's why I got on to say hi, but I'm going off video.
Oh, are you? Why?
There'll be so many of us.
Oh.
Kathy,
Hi, TJ.
Hello.
In downtown Superior.
my screen.
Right at the epicenter.
I
As
love
usual.
Yeah.
Are we doing video for this call?
Yeah, we'll have video for this call, and I'll just letting everybody know that if you want to be on video and speak on video, you can do that. If you'd rather just be audio, that's fine too.
You shower today, Shelley?
I did. I shower. I had 2 meetings today, so I'm not on my pajamas. So
Yes.
there's a plus.
Had to put your clothes on.
I gotta go comb my hair.
I even combed my hair. What the heck? It was
I,
a busy
I
day.
need to look cute for Cory.
Lori muted herself. But
I have my dress slippers on.
I'm gonna unmute her.
That's all you need. You only have to go from here up, right?
Right.
We have somebody in the chat.
We'll have to remind everybody, if you mute yourselves, I have to go back in and then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hate to be stupid.
But you're gonna be. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Shelley. I so have missed you.
Shelley can say that. I would never be able to say that.
Of course
Would
not.
get it.
Hey,
But I can't come through the computer and slap her. So if I don't want to be, what do I click on?
7974
Oh.
phone number.
you just in the bottom with
Somebody-
if you have your cursor, you can show mute and then stop video.
You don't need.
Oh, that's okay.
So the stop video gets you off of screen.
It works like this.
And we can unmute.
You went off screen, Vicky?
What?
You went off screen?
No, you said you were.
You did.
No, I'm right here.
Okay. No.
Like, how do I get? Oh, I have to go to there. Now I can see everybody.
Christina
Okay.
Olson.
I don't
Kelly, you and I have the same ceiling fan, it looks like.
And TJ has a downtown in his living room.
I know.
Sam left. We are kind of a rowdy group, even when we're not together.
Lori, did we got you unmuted, right?
Yes, thank you, Scott.
Okay.
And I
Great.
promise I won't say anything inappropriate, but if I have to ask a question, then it's best if you can hear me.
Correct. Yes. Well, we'll just have to see about the inappropriateness. We'll wait.
I'll try to behave.
I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in where I wish we had a mute button.
TJ, Sam, anybody that's recently joined us, we're a little bit limited in our flexibility here. So we've unmuted you. Please don't mute yourself because then Kathy will have to go in and unmute you again when it's your time to speak. So just leave yourself unmuted. And then, of course, after you ask your question, then it would be okay to mute.
Mute
Makes sense?
myself at that point. Okay.
Scott, thank you for your help, and I will trade places in one moment with the senator.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm unmuting.
Yeah. And Kathy, can you bring up my notes?
I'm trying.
Oh, sorry.
I'm missing Pete Solace. I don't know.
Okay. That's all right.
Just a phone number possible. Okay.
And-
So Scott, I'm the last one to ask a question. You want me to stay unmuted the entire time?
Well, just during the senator's comments and then everybody else's questions. And then after that, yes.
Okay.
I like the look you're giving me right now, TJ.
Well, I'm just concerned you're gonna have dogs barking. You're gonna have dogs
Oh, I see.
barking, or God knows whatever else
We
for the
can-
whole time.
If that's the case, then go ahead and mute yourself, and then we'll just take a minute to get you unmuted when we get
Great.
close to your question. Yeah.
Dallas is the only one I'm not seeing.
Good afternoon, everyone. We will get started in just a couple minutes here. I will wait for a few more people to join us, and then also the senator will be here in a minute or two too. So. Oh, can I just use the mouse while I'm speaking? And then I'm on that. That way I can. That way I'll put it over here so I can see it. Can we just unmute her and then mute her again? Because I think that's going to be annoying. Can we just unmute her? Can we just mute her and then unmute her? Yeah.
You're gonna have to, because I don't have, she's right there. touch.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Hello, sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. I think we have the senator here, so we will get started. Welcome, Senator, and welcome everyone this afternoon. This is our town hall with Senator Cory Gardner. This is with the Northwest Chamber Alliance. My name is Scott Cook, and I'm the CEO for the Longmont Chamber. This is the second in our series of town halls with the Colorado Senators. Our first was yesterday with Senator Bennett. The Northwest Chamber Alliance consists of 7 chambers, including Boulder, Broomfield, Lafayette, Latino, Louisville, Superior, and Longmont. Together, we represent over 3,600 businesses and over 137,000 employees. I'm joined today by my fellow leaders from each of these chambers, and we will hear from each a little bit later on. We appreciate everyone that's joined us today and your commitment to your local chamber. Your local chamber through this alliance brings a larger voice to your business and your local business community more than you otherwise would have. This meeting will last approximately 45 minutes. We will begin with Senator Gardner. After each of our chamber leaders will ask a question, and then we will take questions from the chat section. If you chat a question, please include your email. If we do not get to your question, it will be forwarded to the Senator's office where he and his staff will be able to review and answer. Senator Gardner, thank you for taking this time to meet with our chambers and businesses in our region. We appreciate the work you are doing for Colorado and our country at this time. I'll say on a personal note that we appreciate the support that you and your office have given to the Longmont Chamber over the years. You mentioned earlier that you wanted to spend much of this time hearing from us, but if you would first give us an update from your perspective, and then we'll hear from others on the call.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for the chance to be with the Northwest Chamber Alliance. I greatly appreciate the time. These are obviously unparalleled, unprecedented times in our lives, in our health systems, and in our businesses. So thank you very much, and I very much look forward to hearing from you on ideas that you have that we can engage with, that we can institute, ideas that you have to make programs that you've seen instituted, run better, work better, and other things that we can be helpful with, and then of course answer any questions. Obviously, Dan and Ryan in my Fort Collins office, please reach out to them if we can be of assistance. Maria in the Greeley office, if that's closer, and then of course offices in Denver and Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Grand Junction, Durango, and the home office here in Yuma. So thank you very much for this chance. I thought what I'd do, since you heard from Senator Bennett yesterday, Senator Bennett and I have worked very closely on a number of these issues. I don't want to spend too much time repeating something that he may have said going over the program. So I'll briefly touch on sort of how I have focused on this health emergency, hit some of the highlights of the programs that I'm sure everybody is well aware of, and then just turn it over to you, Scott. So thank you. Throughout this entire health emergency, I've focused on a 3-prong approach. The first prong of that approach is making sure that we're addressing the health emergency itself, what we are doing to, as the experts have said, we need to do, flatten the curve and stop the spread, that we must do that. That's part of our social distancing, that's part of the shelter in place, and that's following those guidances from our public health experts and scientists who show and share with us how we are going to stop this. And in a conversation with the governor yesterday, we're doing the right thing, and so I can get into that more. The second prong that I've approached this with is about assistance to individuals and people, providing real assistance to real people in real time across Colorado and this country. The anxiety that I hear and I see and the uncertainty in people's voices, all of us sense that because people are worried about their job. They're worried about what's going to happen to their families. They don't know how they're going to put food on the table in the long, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks with their job, how they're going to pay rent, whether they're going to be able to meet their mortgage or not. And so we have to be able to provide that real assistance to people. And the third approach, of course, is making sure that we have businesses that are able to keep people on payroll, keep people employed, and then be able to snap back into full force and strength once the health emergency has been addressed. Those three prongs are not things that you do addressing one and then you address number 2 and then you address number 3. those three prongs are actually things that you have to do all at the same time. You have to make sure we're addressing the health emergency while we take care of people and we prepare our economy to snap back. Those three things have to be accomplished at the same time. Congress has passed 3 phases of legislation. The first 2 phases primarily dealt with funding supplemental appropriations for the states, making sure that we had additional funding into food nutrition programs like SNAP and WIC, dealing with additional funding for testing and things like that, and testing on PPEs and others, and then making sure that we have a paid leave program that's backfilled by the federal government. The third phase, of course, is what has occupied most of the attention, and that's the bill that was signed into law a couple of weeks ago and has drawn a lot of attention with programs like the Paycheck Protection Program. How that bill fits into those 3 prongs. On the first prong, obviously, it provides $100 billion for our hospital systems and our first responders, our healthcare professionals. It provides $16 billion for PPE and other necessary equipment in the national stockpile, $11 billion for vaccines, therapeutics, medications, and treatment of COVID-19. It provides $150 billion to backfill state and local governments with COVID-19 related expenses. There's a number of other things that we can get into in that first health emergency response. On the second prong, we started to see today, you may have seen this already, that a lot of the rebates, recovery rebates, are starting to go out to people. That's $1,200 for most Coloradans, $2,400 for couples married that are filing jointly, and additional dollars for children. Those are electronically deposited where the government has that information on file. If the government doesn't, there's a portal that's been set up on irs.gov, irs.gov to help assist with those payments to make that direct payment as quickly as possible. The other individual assistance, of course, is through the unemployment insurance. The benefits have been expanded. The amount of benefit you can receive has been expanded. The time of eligibility has been expanded. And something that I thought was very important, creating a new category of eligible in unemployment insurance. And so this is something that I had pushed for, was the creation of basically this COVID-19 global pandemic assistance program. People who aren't traditionally eligible for unemployment insurance, self-employed, independent contractors, people with limited work history, who aren't furloughed but see their hours reduced as a result of COVID-19, have eligibility through the unemployment insurance office now. So they don't have to be furloughed. They can just have had that hours reduction, and not normally something they would receive, but now can have a place to go to make sure they receive that individual assistance as well. Those are the 2 primary fronts on the individual assistance. The third prong, and the way the CARES Act fits into that third prong, is to, on the business front, the Paycheck Protection Program, which is available for businesses, 501c3s, or 501c19 nonprofit organizations with 500 employees or less. They would have access to a loan that's equal to a snapshot 8-week period of 2.5 times payroll. And as long as the loan is used for things like payroll support, health insurance, premiums, paid leave, mortgage, interest, rent payments, utilities, other debt obligations, that portion of the loan can be forgiven. And so the Paycheck Protection Program, as of this morning, or maybe it was a yesterday number, that has already issued over $6 billion in loans to small businesses in Colorado. That's Colorado alone. The program itself is going to need additional funding very soon, and I certainly support efforts to refill that program, put additional dollars into that. The other programs along for small business, of course, is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan advance payment of $10,000, that needs to go out as quickly as possible. That has been held up. We're pushing to get those dollars out. We're pushing to put more resources behind that because of the way they've had to ration it, so to speak, right now as they look to get those dollars out. Additional employer programs is an employee retention tax credit and some other provisions to provide immediate liquidity into the business. The key, of course, to the Paycheck Protection Program is keeping the payroll whole. Why is that so important? It gives people their chance to keep their job, to keep making payroll. If they receive their health insurance through their employer, it's a way to keep them insured with their employer's health insurance program. That keeps them from going into the unemployment insurance office, which is already seen, as we've all seen this, a 3-week period of 17 million new claims to the unemployment insurance offices. That's just a crisis, a tragedy. And that's why this program is so important that it succeed. There's a number of other things and programs that we could get into. Those are some of the highlights and the top level comments on it and points on it. But Scott, I'll just turn it back over to you, and we can take questions and go from there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Senator. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around the room, or maybe I should say around the county, around Broomfield County as well. And we'll allow each one of the chambers to ask a question similar to how we did yesterday. And then we'll get into questions from the audience if you like. So if you would put your question in the chat section, then we will just start. Kathy Stevens on our chamber staff will read as many as we can. We'll get through as many of those as we can get to. So we'll go by alphabetical order by community name. And I believe we have Lori Call with us from the Boulder Chamber. So she's filling in for John today. So we'll hear from Lori first. Lori.
Yes, Senator, thank you very much for joining us today. Obviously, you know that the communities that are represented with the Northwest Chamber Alliance are smaller communities, under 500,000. And so as you're looking at the Phase 4 stimulus package, increased flexibility for towns like ours is really important. Any additional thoughts that you have to kind of account for, you know, the significant losses that we're facing despite the fact that we're under that 500,000 threshold?
Yeah, so the 500,000 threshold was something I fought against and tried to get Congress to just basically throw out. Unfortunately, that was something that Senator Schumer had wanted as part of the package, and that was negotiated into the package. I had hoped that that would not be included. I think the Colorado delegation, all of us joined together in a letter objecting to that and wanting flexibility. So hopefully that is something that we can get turned around and make sure is provided, is that flexibility. So the $150 billion that will go to the state, if you're not above that threshold that they set for those bigger cities, will flow through the state of Colorado. Those guidances should be coming out. Some have, and other guidances will be coming out momentarily. And it's important that states have counties, municipalities have as much flexibility as possible in how to determine where to spend those and how to spend those. Of course, the $150 billion pot to the states and local governments has to be spent on COVID-related expenses. Obviously, we need flexibility in those COVID-19 related expenses, including, you know, is that a loss of sales tax to a community because of COVID-19? I think there's absolutely a rational, reasonable argument you could make that that's the case. Is it a school district loss of revenue because of distance learning or other things? Absolutely. I think that that's a legitimate case. I've talked to Secretary Mnuchin about this. He has agreed to provide the maximum flexibility that they can. I've been told that he said that by the end of this week, we should have those guidances out. So we'll keep pushing for it and that flexibility. I also believe that additional phases of legislation coming forward will provide additional help to states and municipalities. I think additional help will come, and you can bet that I'm going to be fighting against any kind of population cap because, you know, big cities, small cities, hamlets, villages, metropolises, they have all been affected by COVID-19.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lori. We'll next go over to Sam Taylor at the Broomfield Chamber of Commerce. Sam.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you very much, Senator Gardner. I appreciate everything you've done for Colorado and the way you and Senator Bennett work together. Unlike some states that have senators from different parties, you two really do talk.
Sam, sometimes they're even from the same party.
Well, yeah, just as often, you're right. So I really appreciate that. My question's a little bit different because even before the pandemic, many of our small businesses were worried about being able to provide health insurance to their employees because they have such a small insurance pool. Now many of them are laying off these same employees and they can't afford to pay the insurance and the employees can't afford to pay it either. Will this pandemic cause a shift in the way we deliver healthcare, possibly even allowing some type of public option to get it off the backs of our small business?
Yeah, I think as we deal with this, of course, a couple things on the healthcare front. Very worried about what happens to our hospitals right now. And a lot of the $100 billion is going out to those hospitals. As Lori mentioned, that we need it to all size cities. We also need this funding for hospitals to all size hospitals, rural and majors. I know that's not exactly what you asked about. I'll get to that just in a second, but we've got that funding that's going to be coming into the healthcare system. They're talking right now about reimbursing these hospitals for the cost of all COVID-19 costs, insured, uninsured, to help make sure that they have the dollars available to do just that. We obviously have been working hard to get a number of the cost drivers on health insurance eliminated. We were successful this year in eliminating the health insurance tax, which would save Coloradans, I think average Coloradan family around $400 or so a year in their health insurance costs. So we were able to do a number of things like that to drive down those costs. I don't think that this will result in a public option. I think the hospitals would be very, very concerned about that. And I think you can hear that expression from the hospitals now as they're concerned about how they'd be able to operate before the pandemic and what that would mean to them now. But obviously, we have to make sure that the hospitals receive the funding. My guess is they'll need additional dollars through this process as well, that we hit the rural hospitals, get them ability to access the Paycheck Protection Program right now, because right now they're not able to access that. We did provide an option for them to get what's called a Medicare advance. They have to pay that back, but that gave immediate liquidity to a number of rural hospitals to help them get through this as they've made decisions, tough decisions, but the right decision to give up the elective procedures. Some of the major hospitals were ordered to do that, but some of the rurals were not ordered to do that. They were given the option of doing that. And when they did that, their kind and gracious insurance companies so graciously decided they wouldn't cover them through their business interruption insurance. So that's got to be addressed too, Sam. So I think there's a lot of things that will change. That business insurance, the business interruption insurance probably becomes more of a reinsurance program, like the terrorism reinsurance programs, the TRIA program, the backfill of it, and then making sure that they're viable going forward. So in that sense, yes, it will change.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
All right. Thank you, Sam. We'll go to Vicki Trumbo over at the Lafayette Chamber next.
Okay, Senator Gardner, thank you again for being here with us. I have a really selfish question. Most communities and chambers do large events, and they are income source for our chambers. Do you realistically see that we'll be able to do large community events as the summer rolls on? I know I'm asking you to look in a crystal ball, but tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's a tough question to ask, because in the call we had yesterday with the governor, he did say that they're making he feels very good about the progress we've made in adhering to the social distancing and the sheltering in place. His order was through the 26th. He feels like that is on target, but he's also said that the opening will be phased in. And my guess is big events like that will be some of the last to be phased in. So, that's me speculating it. That's me guessing what's going to happen. But I think, in Colorado, eastern Colorado in particular, we hear a lot of tornado sirens go off. When you hear a tornado siren, you go off, you go to the basement. When you hear the all clear siren, you leave and you go back and life goes back to normal. You hope. There's not going to be that all clear siren that everything's back to normal in this case. It's going to take a while. And I think those big events like the banquets or the auctions or the fundraising things are going to take some time, and that'll probably be toward the later end. And whether that later end is July or whether that later end is September, I just can't tell you. But it is one reason why I would like to see 501c6 nonprofits added to the eligibility list of the Paycheck Protection Program. So that and other nonprofits as well, in addition to the C3s and the C19s, I'd like to see that included, which might help address some of the at least temporary needs of the organization.
Okay, we'd all like to see that also. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a less than concrete answer. I apologize,
okay.
But I think that's going to be the phased in approach. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Senator, we did send a letter, all of our chambers together under our Northwest Chamber Alliance group, requesting what you just mentioned, so that 501c6 organizations would be covered under that. So thank you.
And we're just in the process of sending a letter to Senator McConnell, Senator Schumer, and Secretary Mnuchin that includes, bless you, that includes a number of features to the Paycheck Protection Program that we think would make it stronger, including the 501c6 provisions, including raising the 2.5 times payroll to 4 times payroll. We would also like to see the income that would help address the rent cap that they put on it. Congress didn't intend that, so that would take care of that to a large degree. We want to see the LLC distribution issues fixed. Some of that got fixed yesterday, but it didn't on the agricultural side. So we'd like to see that get fixed. Like I said, I'd like to see the critical access hospitals added into it, rural health centers, making sure they can get into it. Some of the affiliate rules changed, the franchises allowed into it. Janitorial service companies that have 2 or 3 people can't get into the program because they're not on the franchise list of the SBA. That's crazy. Let's fix it. And so that's what we're working on. So thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we were going to go to Pete Salas at the Latino Chamber. I'm not sure that he's on the call. Pete, if you would either raise your hand or send us a chat and let us know that you're on the call. We certainly don't want to skip over you, but we'll skip over you for the moment. We can come back to Pete if we need to, but we'll next go to Shelley at the Louisville Chamber. Shelley.
Hi, Senator Gardner. Thank you so much
Hello.
for spending time with us. I know how busy you are, and we really appreciate this. I know that there's talk, the governor has talked about slowly getting things back to normal. Are there any steps that will be taken to calm people's fears about going out into public, such as restaurants and retail? What are some of the new guidelines that the businesses will need to follow? Do you have any of that information?
Yeah, so obviously the governor is working on guidelines for Colorado. The administration at the federal level is working on guidelines for the country with their task force that was just announced yesterday, their economic task force, and some of the people on it, like Jamie Dimon, Condoleezza Rice, and others that are going to be trying to figure out how to make those openings happen. Governor Polis obviously has been talking to us about the steps that will be taken. I think the governor's done a very good job, and I think he's got this the work that he's doing to plan this needs to be transparent, rolled out as quickly as possible. I think what will give people confidence is, number one, the transparency in that process. So they know what's going to happen and they know what's expected. We're going to start with, if you go to a restaurant, we're going to meter the restaurant entrances, or we're going to make sure that people are sitting far enough apart, and that we'll have the PPE in the restaurant for the staff and other things like that. That kind of transparency and ability gives people comfort and knowledge that it's been taken seriously and that health is first and foremost in people's mind. The second thing I think we have to do is we have to get more and more testing, because testing really is the key to giving people confidence. And when I say testing, I don't just mean that we have 10,000 a day. No, I mean we have to get to the point where testing is so ubiquitous. I go to 7-Eleven, I get my my kombucha, and I buy a COVID-19 test at the same time. And so at that level, we can have that certainty. When you go into the doctor's office, you have a sore throat, yeah, you're going to get a flu test, but yeah, you're also going to get a COVID-19 test as well. And then we have the mass testing and the data collection around that, so that we know whether this is a Detroit problem or a Denver problem or an LA problem or a Boulder problem, so that we understand the population issues. And we have to have the serology testing. That's going to give people comfort as well. Serology to understand what happens after people have had it, the antibodies that are available, and then getting that information out to the public. That's going to give them comfort as well. So there's a lot of it as we kind of phase in the opening, according to the governor's plan and the federal plan as well.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. And Shelley, we're working with Dr. Scott Gottlieb. I'm working with Dr. Scott Gottlieb, the previous administrator of the FDA. On really developing this long-term plan. And when I say long-term, I don't mean, next year. I mean, what we do this summer to make sure that these tests are there and happen and move forward, so that we can do it. Because if we get this wrong, right, people will make a consumer decision that they're not going to go to the restaurant, that they're not going to go out to the retail stores and buy something. They're going to shelter in place voluntarily because because that confidence isn't there. So that's why it has to be right. We can't do this again, whether it's by order or because we don't have confidence.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. And last, we'll go to TJ Sullivan at the Superior Chamber.
Good afternoon, Senator.
TJ, how are you?
Question, I'm good, sir. My question is about senior citizens. Every time there's a terrible tragedy in this country, whether it's Katrina or this, it seems that nursing homes and long-term care facilities are hit terribly hard. In Katrina, at least 140 people died in 13 Louisiana nursing homes. And 2 days ago, USA Today reported that at least 2,300 long-term care facilities in 37 states have cases with more than 3,000 dead. I guess my question is, as we are learning the lessons from yet another national crisis, can the federal government, in your mind, do anything to make sure that those in the elder care business and their clients are less vulnerable when the next tragedy hits?
Yeah, I think in Colorado alone, we've seen far too many tragic loss of life because of COVID-19 in nursing homes. So a couple of things. We have Colorado State University is working on the sort of senior living, the senior community to provide testing, to provide basically a scientific approach to the question that you just asked, really trying to understand what happened and to learn how this affects seniors, how this affects senior living centers and communities, and what lessons we can have in real time to apply to staff at senior care centers, senior living communities, and to the patient themselves. So CSU is doing a great job of that. We're working with CSU to address some of the needs there, including I think the company is called BioFire testing solutions that we're trying to get in place for them. The other thing, of course, is when the outbreak happened, and I don't remember when this guidance came forward, there was a very immediate step up of, and I'm going to get the name wrong, but I think you'll know what I'm referring to. Basically, the sanitation requirements, the sterilization at senior living centers. So that was dramatically increased, the level or code that they went to make sure that the infection control was done properly. And so that is an important step that they took early on. Obviously, we have to learn more about this through testing, how it affected older populations. And the serology will also share with us that information. There may be things that we can learn through convalescent plasma treatment as well, to give perhaps as we test the science behind this, to give our the seniors and elder population amongst us a line of defense maybe that they didn't have before this. And then bottom line is the science that goes behind sequencing, mapping, and understanding exactly how this coronavirus worked. Because if you go back over the last decade plus, we've now seen about 3 waves of different coronaviruses that have been very deadly. And so you could probably guess that there will be another coronavirus of some kind that emerges in the next 2 to 4 years. And so the more we can learn and map out and complete on this and globally share that information, the better prepared we can be for the next one. That includes moving and making sure that we have supply chains for reagents, pharmaceuticals, and PPEs here, so that we don't have to rely on others for that, if that epidemic should hit.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks, TJ. We'll move into some questions now from the chat section. And I believe we have a number of questions here. And again, if we don't get to all of them, we have saved the chat and we'll forward these on to the senator's office to get them answered. But I'll have Kathy in our office read out some of these questions, and then we'll get some answers here. So I believe we have first from Chip at Boulder Downtown.
And this is the question that's similar to Lori's question about support for cities, also 501c4s, etc.
Yeah, and again, the letter that we're sending to Senator McConnell, Schumer, and Mnuchin basically says, hey, include nonprofits. So that would cover C4, C6, you name it. There has to be some obvious measure of control on that. I don't think anybody wants a political super PAC to be getting loans from the American people and getting refunded. That doesn't make any sense. So there has to be some controls on it. But obviously, chambers, economic development organizations, business platforms, trade associations that are going to be telling everybody how they get their personal assistance, how they get into the Paycheck Protection Program. Important to have that voice heard. So yeah, we're on the same page there. And just the support, $150 billion for state and local governments needs to be as flexible as possible. And I believe there will be additional rounds of funding coming with it in the next phases. We haven't talked about that much here on this call. I'm assuming there will be a phase 4. I'm assuming there will be a nuts and bolts package, and that additional funding will be coming through them.
Yesterday in the call with Senator Bennett, I got the impression that that time frame was really unknown, that there wasn't really a date for that 4th package. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would.
Have any?
Oh, sorry, Scott.
Well, I was just gonna say, do you have any idea? Are we looking at mid-May, or are we looking at a week? Any kind of time frame, I guess.
Yeah, that is an unclear time frame right now. I think there's kind of 2 tracks that I would describe that need to be taken on this response. One track is what I would call, I said we had 3 phases of legislation that passed: the first phase, second phase, and third phase. One bill is probably going to be phase 3.1. It's not going to be the robust big phase 4, but it needs to be a nuts and bolts package, things to address the refunding and putting more money into the Paycheck Protection Program, putting more money into the EIDL, the economic injury disaster loan, so that you can get up to that $10,000 advance, and so that we have the money in there to do what we need to do, so that we can fix some of the 501c6 issues. That's a kind of a nuts and bolts package that we ought to pass, and that's the phase 3.1 track. The phase 4 track is a bigger sort of light at the end of the tunnel project. It could be infrastructure. I think both the administration, Secretary Mnuchin, they support a big infrastructure package. I support a big infrastructure package. We have a bill that's already out of committee in the Senate that passed unanimously with bipartisan support. That could be in phase 4. Our ski areas that had to shut down months early, they should get, let's get our ski area permit fees refunded, or not have to pay them. Let's get our outfitters fees waived for Colorado. There's a lot of Colorado specific things that we could address. The broadband, I live in Yuma, and if anybody's ever been to Yuma, sometimes broadband can be a challenge in Eastern Colorado. And on my phone, I make a joke that I can find 5 bars in my hometown. I just can't find 5 bars on my cell phone. And so, the phase 4 could fund additional broadband development, water infrastructure, those kinds of things. So that's the bigger pictures. Now, Scott, you're right. As far as the time frame, we don't have any yesterday. We just heard we don't have a clear picture of the time frame. In my push, it should be as soon as possible. We're communicating daily with our colleagues about what a bill would look like, how to include it, how to get it done. We were just informed yesterday that the Senate will reconvene. We were supposed to be back on Monday, this upcoming Monday, the 20th. They have now said that Schumer and McConnell announced that will now be May 4th. So there's no reason why we can't have something ready to go in May. But I don't know that directive has come out officially yet from anybody in the administration or leadership.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Senator. Let's go on to the next question. I think we have one from Chris McGilvray.
What discussion is happening in regards to economic relief to property owners who have lost significant revenue from rent losses?
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody about that this morning. We learned in physics that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. And the same thing can be said in finances, right? Where if you can't pay your rent, or that rent is, if there's forbearance on that rent or a payment is missed, that affects somebody else. And in turn, that affects somebody else. So maybe the rent isn't paid that month, and that affects the management company. And because the management company didn't get the rent payment, then that affects the payment that they would make to the owner of the building. And so there's an entire stream, both up and down, that is affected by that. And so all of those impacts have to be considered. Some of them were considered in the CARES Act. If you are a federal, and I find the language here, if you're a federal-backed loan, there is some forbearance that was included in the CARES Act, but it didn't get the whole stream. And so I think some of those considerations are going to have to be made in phase 4, or that track 3.1, phase 3.1 that I talked about, to make sure that the whole stream is taken care of.
Okay.
We have Roger Horton question. At Swisslog Healthcare, our end customers are mostly hospitals. We are hearing hospitals are suffering greatly financially due to both direct cost of treating COVID-19 patients and also postponing their most profitable elective surgeries. What is in the works to assist hospitals to come out of this, some for profit and many nonprofit? As whole, as whole as positive, so they can continue to invest in facilities and upgrades to better care for their patients moving forward.
Yeah, Roger, first of all, thank you very much for the chance to visit Swisslog when we did several months ago now, last year, I believe, and the opportunity to learn more about what work you're doing, and then the call that we had not too long ago about how the role you play and the solutions you can bring can help in COVID-19. So thank you very much for that time. So we have $100 billion in the emergency funds for hospitals. Some of that, I think $34 billion has gone out the door already to hospitals, but the administration is already talking about how to make sure that they're covering the costs of COVID-19, both uninsured as well as just any COVID-19 related cost to them. So that's a $100 billion emergency fund. $30 billion went out the door last week, not 34. More will be going out, and my guess is more people more money will be added to that. I think Colorado received about $361 million of that last week. So that fund is already starting to come through. And again, several Colorado hospitals received the Medicare advance to allow them to stay open. But you're right, between the elective procedures decision, where many hospitals were told they couldn't provide or perform elective procedures, their cash reserves have basically been eliminated. And so we recognize that, and that's why particularly important this $100 billion fund to hospitals, as well as the critical access hospital access to the Paycheck Protection Program and to other grant programs will be coming. Senator Bennett on the call yesterday may have mentioned to you a bill that we have together that would provide additional funding for some of our rural hospitals in the form of grants and others. So Roger, it's something that we have to get right with additional dollars coming down the road.
Okay, question from Kay with Zayo Group. I'm leading Zayo's COVID response team. Last week, our CEO, Dan Caruso, forwarded an idea on how the government could spur investment and innovation in next generation healthcare technologies. We believe a program similar to E-Rate, which has driven investment in broadband to schools, could be focused on connecting hospitals and other healthcare facilities and enabling advancement in telemedicine, remote surgery, and research. Have you considered shovel-ready projects like this that can both advance healthcare and get our economy moving again?
Yeah, Kay, thank you for that question, because we should talk more about it, and I'm happy to do that. And I hope, if you call our office, call Sam in the office and Megan, who have been working a lot on both these issues. And Megan's on this call right now if you'd like to reach out to her. A couple things. In 2018, I had sent a letter to the FCC to talk about their connected care program. The idea being to use FCC dollars to ramp up our ability for telehealth, both on the technology side, the project side, and the investment side. And within the CARES Act, we provided about $200 million directly to the FCC for this connected care kind of program. It's up and running. Organizations can seek grants right now to reimburse them for their costs. So for those shovel-ready projects that are getting telehealth up and running, one of the things that I've been pushing for a long time is to allow telehealth to be reimbursed for Medicare, allow Medicare to reimburse telehealth visits. We've introduced a bill every Congress to do that. It took COVID-19 to make it happen. And so right now, Medicare does and will reimburse for a telehealth visit for during the COVID-19 health emergency. I'd like to see that continue well beyond the health emergency. And so we have the Connected Care program right now, which we should talk more about, Kay, and see how we can make it better with your ideas. And so if you wouldn't mind calling us and we can have the office reach out to you, that'd be fantastic, because I think there's a lot to this and exactly what we're trying to do. The other thing is if we do another spectrum sale, the federal government holds the spectrum, and every so often, every 5 years or so, we have to get more spectrum out into the hands of the private sector. The next auction that we do, I'm pushing for basically a set aside of 10% of the proceeds that you take and put into undeveloped and underdeveloped areas for broadband, so that we can get some of these monies out and flowing to areas. Because I don't know about everybody else on the call, but I've had to elevate our 16-year-old daughter to the position of chief technology officer so that we can understand all of the apps and things that we're downloading. It's amazing. But that's expected not just in Denver and Boulder and Fort Collins and Louisville and Superior and Longmont. It's expected in the Eckleys and the Haxtons and the Hartstrongs and all of the other little tiny areas in between that need to have that same connectivity. So it's a great question, Kay. We should continue to work on that. Thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Andrea. It says, Governor Gardner, we were meeting with at your office in DC the day everything shut down last month.
Oh, wow.
Along with our mayors and commissioners from the US 36 corridor about our transportation projects. Do you believe we'll see transportation infrastructure funding as a long-term economic stimulus strategy come for our projects that our region has shovel ready, such as State Highway 119? What about broadband infrastructure?
I do believe it will be. And so the CARES Act provided $25 billion in it for mass transit. Colorado has already received a very big and significant chunk of that funding through the CARES Act. I think phase 4 will be an infrastructure bill, and that will get additional dollars to Colorado for our projects. As far as the infrastructure, other components, I do believe that water infrastructure should be a part of that, like things like completing the Arkansas Valley conduit in southeastern Colorado that provide 50,000 people clean drinking water. I think broadband should be a part of that, as I just mentioned, with the dividend, to where if we had an auction sale, and we don't even have to do the auction sale now. We could actually have the FCC pre-fund the program and say, hey, we're going to generate $6 to $7 billion in it, advance that money, and then just backfill it when the auction happens. And if there happens to be extra money, then put that in. So yes, I think the answer is yes, and I'll be pushing for it.
All right. Senator, we're about at 42 minutes. So I just wanted to do a check-in on time with you. Should we take another 1 or 2 questions?
Yeah, you bet. You bet.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. Kathy, let's go to the next one then.
Okay, Daniel Yerger asks, the EIDL loans are, quote, up to 10,000 per employee, end quote, by statute, but at present is currently being capped at 1,000. Is there any intention of increasing funding for the program to allow it to provide higher in-practice payments?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've referenced that a couple times in the conversation today, that it was intended to be 10,000, and they have rationed it down to, as you mentioned, 1,000. So yes, we need to put more money into it. It has been heavily subscribed, and that's why they're sort of rationing it the way they are. But more money into it gets it up to that full intent, and it needs to be at 10,000. So yes, well, we're actively pushing that now.
Rebecca Novinger, CEO of Imagine. Imagine is a nonprofit organization that supports 4,000 plus people with disabilities in Boulder and Broomfield counties. Due to the size of our workforce, 700, we do not qualify for the Payment Protection Program. Why was 500 selected, and is there any discussion of raising that number in future stimulus packages or adding ways for nonprofits like mine to benefit from the PPP?
Yeah, and I'm assuming there are multiple locations for Imagine, and the work takes place at many different areas. That's one of the things that we're trying to figure out, how to make it work. These affiliation rules that would allow an adjustment on that. This is a great example of why we should allow that to happen. Let's continue the conversation on this. If Dan in my office could reach out to you at Imagine and talk about how we can be of more assistance to help this. In terms of why 500 was chosen, I mean, it's kind of funny. In the town that I live in, there are no businesses that have 500 people employed. I mean, if you have a business that has 50 people in it, it is a massive business. That's a huge business in my town. And so I think that there are various definitions of what is a small business, and that was the number they chose because that was the SBA number that they wanted to use. So I'm assuming that's the Small Business Administration's number that they recognize as a small business, not intended to do anything other than, hey, we have to have a identifier somehow, somewhere. So let's continue to follow up with you, if you don't mind. Dan, reach out to her and we can talk about it, how maybe there's an affiliation rule that might get around that. There's obviously loan programs available for businesses above 500. There's a Main Street lending facility that has been put in place for businesses that are between 500 employees and 10,000 employees, but it's a loan. And obviously with the nonprofit and the work you're doing with the population you're working with, incredibly important work. So let's follow up. That'd be good.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Great. Well, I think we probably have time for at least one more question, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's go for it.
Question from Lori Call. So many of us relying on the internet with the stay-at-home order, I think we see opportunity for increased investment in broadband infrastructure. Are there plans for this type of investment as we go forward?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I think as we get to phase 4, I think the next project should include all forms of infrastructure, including broadband. We could use the $6 to $7 billion from the rural dividend that I talked about in the spectrum auction. We could get an advance from the FCC. The Connected Care program is something that we're working at. So it's you know, I would add one other thing in there that I didn't talk about before. The Land O'Lakes. When you go buy butter at the grocery store and you see Land O'Lakes butter, the CEO of Land O'Lakes gave a speech about rural development and rural broadband. And I was so intrigued by her speech that I called her up and said, hey, could we meet sometime and talk about broadband issues and rural development issues? And sure enough, you know, a month later or so, they were in Washington. We had a good chance to sit down. You know, Land O'Lakes CEO is, I said, what we need is we need a sort of Colorado promise for rural development and broadband. And beyond that, we actually need that same kind of mission driven agenda for the federal government and for Congress. And so we're working together on a concept that would basically be a massive build out of the rural areas, both economically as well as with broadband deployment. And that's something that we're working on now to create a long-term strategy, a blueprint. It's far more than $6 to $7 billion, but that's a good start for us. Beth Ford is the name of the CEO of Land O'Lakes. If you'd like to read some of the speeches, she's done a really good job with on talking this vision. So yeah, it should include that. We're going to push for it, and we have to have a bigger, broader overall blueprint for what we should do for broadband deployment and development across the country. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thank you. We have probably just, I'm looking at the list here, maybe just 2 or 3 more questions. I know, Senator, you're very busy and you're doing quite a few of these.
Well, let's get to them. I'll try to shut up and be brief.
Well, okay, we'll go to the next one here then, and see how many more we can get to. I believe there's one from Chip again at the downtown Boulder.
It's quite reasonable to expect increases in poverty and homelessness as a result of the pandemic. Can you speak to what support cities might look forward to specifically for addressing the impacts of homelessness in our communities?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we did increase funding, and I'm looking in my notes here through the CDBG program for housing. Colorado has already received some of this funding, I think $30-some million for housing needs, and more will be on the way. As I'm looking through these notes here, I'm not finding it, but you know, the Community Service Block Grant is one program. We put $1 billion into it that will provide additional social services and emergency assistance for those who need it most. And then, of course, HUD is working to get money out to Colorado. We did recently announce about a $34 million appropriation, grant to Northern Colorado for the continuum of care, adding another continuum of care in Colorado, funding it for Northern Colorado. We're looking at different affordable housing programs for phase 4 legislation. I'd like to see an expansion of the affordable housing, the tax credit, affordable housing tax credit. We could expand that. That'd be good. We're also looking at some other ideas using opportunity zones to advance affordable housing. But Chip, I think your point too goes, I said I was going to keep these answers short. I'm sorry. I failed at that. So one more thing though I think is important. The economy though, without jobs, without a strong economy, there is a direct correlation between that and homelessness and poverty. And so that's why it's so important that we get this economy going back on and people keeping their jobs running and back to open again. So we got to follow our health directives. We've got to get that right, but we also need an economy that's strong and hiring people again. So thanks. Real short answer.
Okay, next one, Ted Rockwell, Chair of the Board of Directors of the Boulder Chamber. What is being done to ensure COVID testing is being developed that is free and plentiful enough to allow individuals to be tested multiple times over the next 2 years? And when can we expect these tests will be widespread enough to allow for people to return to work en masse?
Yeah, so the testing is absolutely key. And, especially as we work toward the vaccine and the treatment of COVID-19. So we've got a lot to build here. If you look at Colorado alone, I think Colorado has the capacity to test around 10,000 a day. And they're only doing about 2,000 a day. And that's in large part because we don't have the reagents to get the tests done. And that's because of a supply chain that we get it from somewhere else instead of right here in the United States. So we need to fix that supply chain to make sure we're getting the tests. We need new tests developed so that they can be ubiquitous. I talked to Roche over the weekend. I've talked to Abbott. I've talked to Cepheid, all of them about the new tests that they're developing and making and mass producing. Abbott should have some pretty good announcements coming up in the next week or so about this rapid testing. In fact, their Abbott serology test is going to be shipping out tomorrow, which is great news on this. And, we've been working with a number of Colorado-based labs, Centennial Labs in Colorado Springs. They were just miracle workers providing 3,500 tests to a meatpacking plant in Greeley so that every single one of their employees could get tested because of the outbreak there, and protecting the workers, the need to protect our workers. So that's important. The serology test, the antibodies, understanding that, we have to get it done. So I chair the Asia subcommittee on Foreign Relations Committee, and we've been working with Colorado to connect them with not only suppliers in the United States, but we were able to get Colorado 100,000 masks out of Taiwan, and we should have around 130,000, 140,000 tests from South Korea in Colorado anytime now, with more coming as a result. So testing really is the key as we get this vaccine and treatment online.
Okay, great. I think the last question we have, and you've covered it to a degree, and I'll just let you speak additionally to it if you want, but Jessica Carson asked, now that children are being homeschooled and internet is an essential piece of their education, is there anything that can be done about children that don't have access to the internet, children that come from low-income families, that sort of thing? I know, again, we've spoken a little bit about that, but anything else you want to add to the internet access being really, especially now, essential infrastructure?
Yeah, so again, going back to where I live, if you look at the Verizon map, where you can get incredible service, the area of Colorado that I live in is bright red on the Verizon map. It's guaranteed 3G. I guarantee you that's not true. And so if you look at that map, you're supposed to get it. So first thing I had to do when we're doing all these Zoom meetings is go to our local Viera wireless store and purchase a hotspot, basically. I asked them what they were seeing, what business, because this is kind of in the middle of the first steps of the shelter in place. And they said, to your point exactly, there were a lot of people who were coming in and trying to figure out how to get a hotspot, what they needed to do to be able to have access to online learning. So a couple of things that the CARES Act does. The CARES Act provides about $13 billion in funding for K through 12 education needs. A portion of that funding is used for distance learning and to help get that set up through schools. There are additional programs in here that will help fund and offset the cost to school districts and schools for distance learning. I think the flexibility that we talked about earlier for various states' appropriations that we are making happen on COVID-19 should be used for distance learning and helping those families be able to afford it. The $1 billion, the $67 billion I've talked about that could help expand that is something that's a long-term solution, not going to help today, but that's got to be a part of the solution as we go forward. There's the E-rate program has been talked about. Kate talked about that. That is one angle and solution here within the opportunity. I've also been encouraging schools, encouraging the FCC to allow the E-rate program to equip buses with Wi-Fi. And you could create basically a roving study hall with buses, particularly in unserved or underserved or very rural areas. So trying to get that done as well. So it's a good question. It's something that we're dealing with and addressing, and we have to do even more. So thanks for the question.
Great. Okay, I think that is all of the questions that we have in the chat section. I'm sure the Senator would answer other questions if you wanted to contact his office. Senator Gardner, would you just let our audience know how they can get in contact with you if they do have further questions, and as more information comes out, how they can access that from your office?
Yeah, absolutely. So if people would like to, we have offices, as I mentioned, in Fort Collins, in Greeley, in Denver, Colorado Springs, Pueblo. You can find all of our offices at gardner.senate.gov. So don't hesitate to reach out to my office at gardner.senate.gov. Send us an email. We've got information on our website to all the links, the SBA information. If you'd like to get a hold of the Fort Collins office, that number is 970-484-3502. Again, 970-484-3502. The rest of the information is on the website. And I would just add too that, Scott, you have been, all of you in Northern Colorado have been through this before. We've been through great challenge, nothing like this before, nothing as complex and unprecedented as a global pandemic in our lifetimes. But you've faced challenges before, whether it's the floods in 2013, whether it's the forest fires that we've dealt with, other community events that we've gotten through, and we'll get through this. We're going to get through this by standing together, by rising together, by looking up to Pikes, to the great Pikes Peak in Colorado Springs and Longs Peak in Northern Colorado, and what it means to all of us to look up, to look forward, and to find that next horizon. So, the actions we're taking, we're not doing it out of fear. We're doing it out of love for our community, love for our parents, our grandparents, not out of fear, but we have to make sure that we keep doing the right thing. You're on the front lines of this. We're depending on you when we get through this to snap back and make sure that opportunity, the opportunity for the American people, continues stronger than ever. So thank you for the chance to be with all of you. Don't hesitate to reach out to us, please.
Thank you very much, Senator. And I believe we are up to the challenge, and we appreciate your support and your partnership in this. We are all in this together, as you said, and that's how we're going to succeed and hopefully even come out better for it on the end of it. So thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for the work that you're doing for our businesses and our local economies here, and for representing us in Washington from Colorado. We will end our meeting, but I will just remind you that we also have information at each of our local chambers websites as well. And if you contact your local chamber and they don't have the information that you need, we all work in partnership together. So an advantage of our alliance is that you can reach out to your chamber, and all of our chambers will help each other with that information. So again, I want to thank Senator Cory Gardner for joining us today. Thank you for the extra time that you gave us today. We had said 45 minutes and you gave us a little bit of extra time there. So thank you for that. Thank you for the answers. And thank you all for the work that you're doing in each of your communities.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.